Well, joining me now is Negar Mortazavi, Iranian journalist and analyst based in New York. Negar, thanks for joining us. It's an extraordinary story and highly illustrative, I suppose, of what the last few years of diplomatic rapprochement have achieved.
Exactly. Like you were saying, the way I see it and so many other analysts is that this new chapter of diplomacy between the U.S. and Iran that has started is just bearing fruit. It wasn't just about a nuclear deal or a very specific agenda. This is about John Kerry having direct access to Javad Zarif and vice versa, where he can make a phone call, they can discuss, and the U.S. sailors be released under 24 hours. And like your colleague was reporting about the British sailors, who is not even a country considered as much of an enemy to Iran as the U.S., they were held for about 2 weeks. So this shows a lot of difference between the two basically chapters of U.S. and Iran having no relations versus now that the diplomatic channels are open.
Yeah, I think even the pictures that we have of the sailors, compared to pictures we've seen from the past, there's no great sense of strain, stress, anxiety. Would you accept that this was a simple mistake?
I mean, I wasn't in that vessel. I don't have access to the research material of the Revolutionary Guards, but what seems is that both sides have decided to resolve it peacefully and professionally. There is no, like you're saying, you don't really see a strain of any sort of animosity in the language of the two sides about this incident. They both refer to it as an accident. Both sides have accepted that the vessels had entered Iranian waters. So the Iranians see themselves, very capable and in full, I would say, autonomy over those waters. But the fact that they released these American sailors belonging to the U.S. Armed Forces, and the fact that it's the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, who's a very hostile force politically and even from an economic viewpoint towards the U.S., it just shows how this new chapter of diplomacy is starting to work.
I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned, the direct line, if you like, between foreign ministers. I mean, it's at that higher level. But also, we shouldn't kid ourselves, should we? This is a big week in terms of the very slow and painstaking development of a deal, of an understanding between, essentially, above all, between Tehran and Washington.
That's also true, but we shouldn't forget that these two countries had no relations in over 3 decades, for over 35 years whatsoever. There was no relations, no direct talks, no negotiations, no nothing. So a lot of people were joking, even during the 2 years of negotiations, that these two foreign ministers are talking for a 35-year of silence. That's why they met so much. That's why there was so much negotiation. And like you're saying, it took 2 years just for the nuclear deal to come through. But just the fact that there's no stigma attached for both sides on meeting each other, on being in contact with each other, on having not a friendly relationship, but not being foes, and being able to resolve something diplomatically little by little in incidents, or I would even say accidents like this, it's just showing how diplomacy can have other aspects to it besides just the nuclear issue.
Our security correspondent Frank Gardner ended by saying, rest assured there'll be more incidents like this. I imagine while at this stage this has been very easily, smoothly dealt with, the opponents within the ranks within Iran who see things like this happening, those who are not happy about the rapprochement, not happy about being curtailed on nuclear ambitions, they will start to murmur, won't they, and gradually more loudly.
Of course, both opponents of the nuclear talks, the nuclear deal, and even diplomacy in both capitals, in Washington and Tehran, have been very vocal. They've tried their best to try to sabotage the deal, or even after the deal, they've been trying to cause hiccups to the deal. But again, I would like to repeat the fact that this was the Revolutionary Guards. The Revolutionary Guards was the force that had these sailors in hand. They're not known for being moderates in Iranian politics. They're known for being hardliners in their politics, especially towards the U.S. They have hostile language towards the U.S. and hostile politics. So the fact that they were released, the sailors, I would say shows the impact and the influence that the moderates have been having over the overall political structure of the Iran, the fact that they could sway their influence, the Rouhani and the Zarif team, over a very conservative and hardline force like the Revolutionary Guards. And that's also showing us a different dynamic inside Iran.
Well, Negar